Hello, guys. Welcome back to the one and only session with Timi Orosz, the queen with a massive sword. Every time the sword is growing, I know she's laughing every time or not.
Yeah, it just sounds so weird. If people don't know where this is coming from, it sounds like if I don't know, I had a mutant personality or something. I have something growing out of me, but
Or
no,
like a
it's
tail. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so to give you a quick background, Timmy is obviously a person I like to hang out with. That's why we do these sessions. And we got to know each other a couple of years ago, for those who don't know, in Malta. And Timmy is this type of person which juggles multiple things and did a lot for her young age. Let's put it like that.
thank you. Very diplomatic.
And at some point I started using this acronym, this queen with a sword or princess with a sword, and we actually migrated it to queen with a sword.
A promotion.
And that basically said or says that you should connect with Timmy and have a nice chat, because Timmy brings a nice calm vibe with a lot of wisdom. So that's basically the acronym.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. So, guys, today session is about organizational leadership. We talked about personal leadership, we talked about teams leadership, and we talked today about organizational leadership. But before we get to it, I obviously, as you already know, and the habit dictates, I want to ask Timmy how she's doing, what she's working on, why the color of her chair is actually red and not purple. And is it a gaming chair? And
It's a gaming show and I'm not a gamer. So sorry to disappoint you all, but because I work from home and I work in front of my laptop, I have my lot of client sessions and I spend a lot of time on my laptop creating content and all that stuff. I really needed to get a decent chair because I was getting a lot of backache as well. So I said, okay, that's it. I need to invest into something decent. And that's what I was thinking, that it's best to go with a gaming chair because those guys sit in those chairs for 8, 10, 15 plus hours. So the people who build the chairs, they probably know something, and it's better than a standard office chair. So I went with a really cool office chair as a gaming chair. So that's why it's red and it's a cool color. And I just like it because it sort of lights up my day. And when I have client sessions, some of them call it like the spaceship chair because they feel like when I work with them, I help them to skyrocket, which is a quite symbolic sort of gesture. But yeah, that's the reason why the chair is red. It's a little disappointing, but fun at the
no, I
same
think
time.
it looks very practical, and definitely I think in today's time people sit a lot, myself included, switching between office and home office. You definitely need some fancy chair to support your lumbar spine and your lower back. And I just actually got a new chair for my spouse, so it's definitely better. I'm sitting on a nice fluffy chair. You cannot see it, but it's totally white, totally fluffy. So yeah, I guess people would laugh as well.
We have
So,
to see it now, like at some point, like
wait a
show
second.
us like
I have one
something.
probably more here.
There you go. Nice.
It's like
It's a
from a
chair
little
for
cheap.
winter. Yeah.
No, it's a comfy chair. It's very comfy chair, but it doesn't go all the way up. So that's maybe now I got a little bit motivated by your beautiful throne.
Go for
So
it.
Timmy, what have you been up to in your business life, your planning,
Yeah, a lot of
your
things.
visioning?
This is like the time where we are now. We are recording this at the beginning of November, so the sort of end of October, beginning of November. It embarks the favorite time of my year. I like the end of the year phase, and maybe for some people that means the last week in December. For me, this means like from now until the end of the year. So the whole of November and the whole of December is personally and professionally are my favorite months because I do a lot of reflecting. I do a lot of sort of self-analysis, both on myself and also on my achievements professionally. So I've been doing a lot of that recently, and I've been trying to look at what were my goals for this year and then how am I doing. I've got a couple of months if something needs adjusting, and it's a great I think it's a great time frame for anyone to do something like that. And if you are watching this or listening this to this in March, it's fine, but take a note now to do the exercise maybe at the end of the year. So if you are rewriting your goals, it's okay. And that's kind of what I've been doing, because at the beginning of the year when I set my business goals, I had a slightly different vision than what I'm playing with right now in my mind. So like I given you a bit of a sneak peek before we jumped onto this call, but I have a lot of creativity stuck in me, and I'm looking for an outlet for that. And for the last few years, I have been very analytical, very rational, focusing a lot on business and scaling businesses and marketing. And marketing was the only area where I could use my creativity. But it's been bubbling up, and that was one of my little pivots within me that I want to explore, playing with my talent and exploring some new avenues and see where it takes me. So I want to focus a bit more on writing instead of just business. So stay tuned. Maybe you will see what will happen and what will unfold eventually. But I think it's really important when you are a leader or in a senior management position that whatever your goals for you set for yourself for the year, and something changes within you throughout the year, maybe something happened or you changed perspectives or your priorities change, you don't have to so stubbornly stick to your initial goals. If you feel that you are a bit of a different person than who you were a few months ago, take a second look at your goals and those targets that you set yourself, and just double check, are they still align with who am I as a person? Is it still what I want? Because that's what happened to me. I realized that the goals I set for myself at the beginning of the year doesn't align with who I am today. So I needed to tweak things a little bit, and I think that's really crucial to do that, even if it is maybe if you're in a leadership position and you have to follow the company KPIs or the OKRs, or if it is your own company and you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter where you sit, but if something doesn't feel right and not doesn't fit you, that's the best way of saying it, and try to make some little tweaks and changes to fine tune them. That's the phase I'm experimenting with and experiencing right now, which is quite exciting.
No, it's always very nice. Thank you for that addition. And also, what I always like, you bring this personal side of things, because when it comes down to business, and we're going to talk a little bit more about business and today's topic, maybe you can introduce as well just in a second. But I like how you think about business and how you think about your personal life, and that you're always feeling what makes you happy and what makes you unhappy. And I lead this little group called Business Future Mastermind, where we talk a lot about business. And I was sharing actually a semi-business topic, which was happiness, and what does happiness mean for you in business. And then you really see how quickly we really can jump into the KPIs, the analytics, into all the analytical type of things, and then wonder why people are unhappy when you don't ask them how they are, and you measure everything only via the metrics. So I like how you combine things and how you keep always the perspective and self-checking. Hey, where am I? Is it still actually fulfilling, or is it actually backfiring? Does it make me... I've seen it with myself so many times, because I'm very good at loading my agenda from here to there. And then if I don't go, I'm like, oh yeah, like we just talked about it, I want to do MBA, and I actually wanted to finish it this year, and I just went maybe through this from the entire course, and I'm like, no, for some reason it's not on my focus. And I was more focusing on marketing, building myself more as a leader. And then you got to stay realistic, but yet being ambitious. I think this is always the balance that we need to think, and have fun. This is obviously the big topic, which I've seen with myself as well, because I can really quickly become analytical and just driven by the metrics and by checking things off the agenda. And then in the end, it doesn't make me, and I wonder why I'm unhappy.
Exactly. I have a client who's a business psychologist and an executive coach, and he's super experienced. He's in his, I want to say, early 60s. Hopefully I'm not offending, something around that age, but he's got incredible amount of experience behind him. And this one sentence that he says to his clients when he pitches to a new company, he asks them, how do you measure happiness within your team? And I really love that concept, because what you are saying is so true, that people just look at the KPIs, the targets, the conversion rates, the this, the that, only just the figures and the numbers. But what do you have in place to measure with numbers the happiness of your team, the happiness of your management team, the happiness of your own role or your own position. We don't have that, and that's something I think would be so beneficial to many organizations, to have some kind of a matrix in place, like a scoring matrix that would give you a clear understanding of how fulfilled your team is, how happy, how motivated your team is, instead of trying to just guess it or trying to see behind the fake smiles when you ask them how you're doing and they're like, yeah, I'm great, thanks, but actually they are hating their job. So it's important, and that really ties very closely to today's topic that I'm super excited about. So the reason why we're having this chat today and why I'm also here having this conversation with you is that we had this conversation a little while ago talking about how important it is to have integrity as a leader, and that really caught my attention and it got me really excited. So that's something that we wanted to explore a little bit more in depth. What does it mean to have integrity if you're an organizational leader, if you are leading a department, a division, or a team as well? How can you have integrity at work, and what does that even mean? And I think that needs to be the starting point. What does it even mean to have integrity at work, or to be that kind of character who works with integrity? So I'm going to kick this off asking you a question. Okay, in your dictionary, in your own mind, what does that mean to you when someone brings integrity into their role at work?
It's a very good question, and not easy to answer because many organizations operate differently. And when I have to answer this question, I often go really quickly to myself and how I think about being integrous with myself. So that means, having traits, whether that's, values that I often talk about in integrity, honesty, passion, enthusiasm, high performance, perhaps even things that go beyond that, like commitment, being curious. So I feel integrity is this overarching concept where it pretty much means being true to what you say, true to your word. And especially when it comes down to organizations, I think this is a difficult topic, especially in today's turbulent times. And we see what's happening in the world. Things would be probably not happening if people are more in touch with themselves and more honest about, do I really live according to those values? So you could have integrity as a top of the pyramid and build the entire organization to say, okay, what does integrity really mean for us? Is it that we are true to one another, we are authentic with one another, we are not afraid to share our opinion about how we feel? If I have received a feedback from you or from a senior manager, and I had this actually in the past, unfortunately, multiple times, where people, twice my age, and again, this is without judgment because I've made many mistakes myself, but I was actually quite vocal and I said, I'm sorry, but I don't think this was really appropriate feedback. And and then in the end, a particular person said, yeah, sorry, I'm not so experienced in this. And for that, again, without judgment, but sometimes I'm a bit shocked by how people actually take this for granted. We focus so much on the hard skills, like we just talked about, the whole analytical type of things and approach and analytics and making sure KPIs, OKRs, everything is set. But then these so-called soft skills actually are, I feel, as we progress, and probably always have been, the hard skills. How you treat one another, how you treat others, but it often starts how you treat yourself. And that means when you are true to yourself, then often you see that resonating in the organization. So long story short, I feel very honored when I talk to you, when I talk to people that I admire and who are similar and straightforward with how they are. They change, we all change, we go through different stages, right? Sometimes we are unhappy, sometimes we are down, sometimes we are up, but often you see that people are very true to how they behave, and throughout the years you know them. That's why we develop friendships, because somebody is there, been there, done that, and in a similar fashion you can rely on them. And I feel this is something that many people need to brush up, go back to the drawing board, as I call it, and say, hey, what are my values? Am I actually integrous to my friends? Am I actually picking up the phone when I say I will call them? Am I gonna fight for my team, for my organization to get those promotions in when I promise that, or despite the setbacks? So yeah, this is
Good.
kind of a long story.
Yes, no, it's a good way to paint the picture, because that's exactly, I think, the biggest issue is when it comes to those kind of leaders who really want to make a positive difference within their organizations, but they're not quite sure even what the term means, like leading with integrity, because it is such a complex concept that it has many different readings. So the starting point has to be agreeing with your own team, with your own department, with your own organization. What is the definition of integrity for you specifically? What do you agree on for you as a team, as the organization, as the division, as a department? What does even the concept or the word integrity mean? Because if for you as a leader it means something that you're going to honor your words, like for example what you mentioned with the promotions, that's one thing. But if someone in your team has an idea about, for them, integrity, it means that you are being empathetic, completely misunderstanding each other, right? Because you're going to have different expectations. But in my reading, I'm going to give you a couple of negative examples to show you what integrity isn't, because I think that's going to be easier to recognize when someone isn't leading with integrity. And I had a couple of those experiences throughout my career. So I was working at this bank. It's always the bank that I can't go back to for the negative experiences. I'm super grateful for it, but clearly it was not the right environment for me. But I was working at the bank. It was it's like a call center within a major bank in the UK, and I was up for a promotion for a team leader position. It was a small team at a time, and I was quite new in the role, but I was super ambitious. I had the skills. The team already looked up to me. I was already the deputy team leader, so it was kind of the natural move for me as well. And before my team leader actually came to speak to me and tell me one-on-one that I'm getting the promotion, I had another person within the team. Let's call him the snake. You will see in a second why. The other person on my team actually took me aside and was super sweet, really nice, very supportive, wanted to have a quick one-on-one with me just to ask how I'm doing, how I'm feeling, how do I like the role. We were on the same level, mind you, okay? And he was really sort of like fishing for information. I could feel that, like, he's too nice, like, that something doesn't feel right. It's like he was sugarcoating a lot of things. He was being overly nice, over kind. And I said this one sentence to him to say that I really like what I'm doing here, but I'm also interested in a different department, and those are my long-term goals within the bank, to take a side step to learn forecasting and analysis. So what happened in the end, he took this information, went to my team leader because he knew I was up for a promotion, told this information to my team leader behind my back that you shouldn't promote Timi because she's only going to stick around for a year or two and then she will switch departments. And it created an entirely unnecessary drama. It created such a bad atmosphere because obviously a small team, people talk. I heard the whole story back again, and I was very grateful for my manager. She was this very firm, very tough, but fair manager. She's an American lady. I loved working with her. And she sat me down and told me the full story from beginning till the end. And when I found out what happened, I told my manager at the time to bring in this guy right now. And the three of us, let's have an open and honest conversation so we can definitely avoid any misunderstandings, any of the he said, she said stuff. And guess what happened? This guy straight up lied into both of our faces. And that is the great example of what it means when someone doesn't have integrity. When you do anything to backstep another person just so that you can get that promotion over them, you will be surprised. I still got the promotion. The guy didn't. He actually was removed from our team. But it was because of my manager's integrity. My manager had integrity. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you with this story, because you can see the negative example of what it means when someone is having that ambitious drive. In this story, the snake, the guy, okay? So he wanted the same promotion, the same position that I was up for. But instead of him speaking up honestly and directly, and we could have had a conversation about it openly, we could have come to an arrangement that both of us can become deputy team leaders or anything, we could have worked it out. In the end, it resulted in him being removed from the team because he was not respecting the team, he was backstabbing the team members, and that clearly shows that's not leader characteristic, right? If you are going to do this backstabbing kind of communication, that's not integrity. And it has an impact not just on you as a leader or potential leader, but on the rest of your colleagues, on the rest of your peers as well. You lose respect immediately. And that's a difficult position to build yourself back up from if you lost that trust already. And the same applies for if you are changing departments and you are new in a department as a leader, as a manager. You have to start from zero again. They don't know you yet. You're building that trust. You're showing people that you are leading with integrity. So in my reading, integrity means that you are speaking the truth. You're not lying. You're not playing that two-faced game that you're brushing up on numbers just to make your department look good. I've seen that happen as well. Playing with the reports, reporting on the positives, and they were teaching this stuff to us as well. How to pick the positives out of the reports and focus on that. So that's not integrity for me. Anything that isn't showing the reality of a situation, doesn't matter what the topic is, that's not real. And how can you be staying true to your own values if you are dealing with a false or a fake scenario? You lost that opportunity for being authentic or leading with integrity. This is also a long story, but I really wanted to share this because it shows all these different perspectives, and maybe there's a few takeaways there for you guys watching this, that if you're ever in that similar kind of position, that maybe you're up for a promotion or maybe someone else gets a promotion over you. That happened to me as well, sadly. I was really upset. I left the company. But speak to those people. If going back to the other story, when I lost out on a promotion, when it was very clearly up for me, but they brought in an external person, which was the worst decision. It impacted the entire team. Instead of me sitting down with my current manager and having an open, honest conversation and coming up with a plan B for a new development plan, I got offended. I was young. I was 20 something. I got, the ego got the better of me. And I was just like, F you all, that I'm leaving. And I gave them my notice and I left. Bad move on my end. But that happened. So if you are in that position, either yourself as a leader or you have someone on your team and it's an uncomfortable and a tricky situation, have open and honest conversations. So explain the reason behind your decision. If you have to promote someone over another person, sit down with that person who lost out on that promotion. This is where you can really show that you are leading with integrity, because that attitude will trickle down into the rest of your organization. Okay, we're not talking about just team management here anymore. You are leading the entire organization, and these little extra elements that are not the obvious ones, that are not the KPIs, not the the targets, but these little things actually do a lot more for the organization in the long term versus you missing out on your quarterly target.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I have to say that you painted a picture quite well, because I think we all can recognize a lot of these different scenarios, from somebody being kind of sleazy and trying to backstab you. I mean, pretty much what I'm taking out of this is credibility and trust. That's kind of a big topic in terms of integrity. If you want to really for people to trust you, I mean, has to do a lot with credibility. And obviously this guy that you just painted as a, maybe not a daredevil, but pretty much as a devil. And his
let's not go that far. I just called him a snake. If you want to call him the devil, okay, that's fine. No, it's fine.
In general, I think we've all been there, and some of us, when you feel like you could easily bring that to the boss and try to play against each other. But there is a great book, and I think it's called On Homecoming and Belonging by Mr. Junger, I think, and that's a war hero, I think, who was in Iraq, and he talks about that notion of how we want to belong as human beings, to the tribe. And funny enough, how you describe this also in your own experience, trying to get promotion and then leaving, it's he talks a lot about these different things, like back then how we were just hunter gatherers, and we had to, somebody, when they tried to steal, they obviously were expelled from the tribe, because you share everything. In today's society, it's a little more complex and a little bit more sophisticated, where you're part of these organizations, and these are little signals. And if you really have a target as a company that you want to build a tribe within and outside, then obviously you will treat each other differently and your customers differently than if you have this whole bickering at one another. And it's hard, probably, if we talk about managing organization. You have somebody on the top, which is obviously, you've seen it, I've seen it, a big challenge, where they are not involved enough. And it doesn't mean that they have to micromanage, but involve, meaning leading by example and showing, hey guys, we are pulling as one team. We want to do this together, especially when it comes down to the hard time, when, like, we now are in the tech, where tech layoffs and people silently quitting. And it's a lot related to this, because people don't talk about it enough. Because
Exactly.
it's an interesting. I have a question for you, because there is obviously a lot of to unpack in just what you said. But what do you think about perhaps consistency and even ethics, like in terms of organizational leadership? Do you see it as important as well, these characteristics for a leader? And we talk about organization that's obviously composed from you, me, and maybe 10,000 other people, and departments and heads, and VPs and CEOs and all the C-level. But how do you think these two, ethics and consistency, play a role?
I think incredibly important. They have the really crucial sort of places within that whole game of leadership in general. Because just think about an organization. Okay, it's a living, breathing thing. It's like there's no coincidence why you call a company an organization. It has all these different functions. It has all these different organs, okay, within it. So we could call the sales team the heart. You could call the, I don't know, the brain would be the marketing team, etc., if you want to draw that similarity. But there are going to be decisions when you have to, or tough times when you have to make sort of very uncomfortable decisions. Maybe there are layoffs that you need to do. You need to maybe combine two different departments to restructure the whole organization. And if you can't do that in an ethical way, it's very possible that a lot of people will feel betrayed, because you cannot make everyone happy, okay? Especially when there are downsizing, or where maybe you're not hitting the targets, the economy is bad, or maybe something bad happened, okay? It could be anything, basically. And you need to have some layoffs. You need to shrink some of the departments or combine few of the departments, which means that the new managers will have to come into play, or some will have to be let go of. So those are difficult and tough decisions, but you can still do them in an ethical way, meaning, going back to the previous part of the conversation, having those open conversations, and don't keep people just in the dark. And that's, I think, one of the biggest outdated, worst approaches that these people usually would do, especially quite high up within an organization, to keeping the details very last minute, or sharing the details very last minute with the rest of the team, and only sharing some details for people at the very high level, and then they just drop feed some information until it's too late. And people find out, people talk in companies, even if it's not a physical office, you have chat, you have Zoom, you have everything. People are going to be having conversations, the gossip will start. So if you want to avoid all of that happening, especially when there's a restructure happening, or you're closing down an entire department, I've been on that end as well, when I was sitting on the edge of my seat, not knowing, are they going to close our department or someone else's? And they didn't tell us until the last minute. And the way we found out, this is also the bank, a lot of examples from the bank. The way we found out, it was through a newsletter that they sent an email to us on the day it already happened. So one day they just went to the entire department. They told them, hey guys, we're closing down. You're going to be, made redundant in a month. And that's how we all found out. Not me, but that's how I was like, is it going to be us, or is it going to be the department next to us? So that was a really bad decision to do. It would have been a lot easier to communicate that very openly to say, this is the reason why we are doing it. You don't have to go into the nitty-gritty with the numbers, the economy, etc., but be honest about it, be ethical about it, because you are impacting lives and the families of those people as well. And I know that you can't save the whole world and you can't save everyone, obviously. If those tough decisions have to be made, it's fine. But if your communication is going to be consistent, so this is where consistency comes into play, and you're not just blurting something big out at the last minute, so you're creating a bit of a shock for those people involved, it's going to be a lot easier for those people to digest. They're going to walk away with a lot better experience, even if it is a bad situation that they have to deal with. But they're going to look at the positives. They're going to look at, oh, actually, I'm getting a redundancy package. It's great. I can take 2 months off and just maybe go on a holiday. Different story, okay? Instead of scaring them and just blurting this news out to them that, oh, in a month's time, you're going to be jobless because we're closing down your team, your division. Okay, so being ethical and being consistent with how you are communicating these big changes is crucial. But let's look at a different example when it isn't something so drastic, but maybe something on a day-to-day management side of things. So same goes for that. Let's say you are at a senior management position. Maybe you are overseeing multiple divisions. Okay, maybe you are at a director level. Okay, let's go with that. You're at a director level and you are seeing multiple divisions and multiple departments. So you're going to have to rely on those managers of those departments to give you the real insights, because you're not going to know, I don't know, Julie from desk 2 and how she's doing her job. Like, you're not going to know that. Okay, you're relying on that person's team leader, that person's manager, that person's senior manager, until the information gets through to you to get a clear picture. Again, how can you expect that manager who's reporting to you to be honest with you if you're not creating that environment for them? So this is again where integrity comes into play for the organization. If you're not creating that environment for those reporting level managers or senior leaders, you're not going to get the right information to make vital decisions. Maybe you are missing out on data, you're missing out on the real insights because your team is too afraid to really speak up. Maybe you haven't been treating them well, you haven't been treating with, in an ethical way. Maybe you have been pushing their boundaries or things like that. So they're not going to tell you the reality. Again, going back to the reality, okay? If you're not going to have a clear understanding of what is the real situation in Julie's department on desk 2, and maybe you realize that actually Julie is the best closing person and she's converting like crazy, so we should promote her so we can make more money and put her in a bigger responsibility role, you're going to miss out on a lot of growth opportunities for the organization. It's not just about that person anymore, okay? You need to see beyond that. If you're not able to recognize who are your top people are, who are those top performer people are, and it's not just, don't think of the top performers in the traditional sales meaning, but a top performer could be someone who is following all of the procedures. Very rare nowadays to know someone what is exactly the company policy, what is exactly your organizational procedures, and they are following it to the dot. It's so rare. I'm not one of them. I was the one making them better or breaking them, but I was not that kind of person. But in somewhere, maybe for an auditing firm, that's crucial to have people like that who can follow the policies. So that's how I would put it. There are a lot of other examples, but I don't want to overwhelm people who are watching this. But when it comes to looking at the drastic changes, lead with that in mind, that you need to be consistent with what you communicate and how you communicate it, and do it in an ethical way. But when it comes to your day-to-day organizational management, then make sure that you have all of the insights by creating the right environment for your reporting people, so you can get the full picture, basically.
Pretty cool. I like, because you were taking a lot of examples that I actually wanted to mention, or additional questions like, what do you do when you really have like a bigger organization? And then you already answered that with, different levels. And it's really interesting because I've seen it lately a lot, and in the last 10 years, where you have on one side is drastic changes and people who actually only focus on profit and pretend to care, but it's just a fabricated integrity, if you will. But in the end, they just care only about themselves. And that's obviously, if you really ask yourself from the organizational psychology type of perspective, you really know that people care only about themselves.
Yeah.
But if you know that, you can really reward, like you say, on a day-to-day basis, those who actually are transparent. And but you need also this other side of the equation, like you said, those leaders who actually communicate clearly and who don't threaten you, because this is a huge topic in organizations. And I've seen it, you've seen it, you obviously gave more than many examples where people actually feel threatened, and this is obviously a disaster for progress in organization. Because if you go through these transformations, you're stuck in this whole, people like they sit with anxiety on their seat thinking, okay, what is happening next? Am I going to be laid off, or can I do you obviously, like the people who are more solid in their shoes and more stronger, have a stronger character, they just keep going, and they are not so worried because they know things will anyway, things always change, things shift. But having the support from the top management and from your team, and it's everything that you mentioned. Timi, I'm also wondering, because I'm looking at the time, we have still a little bit buffer. If you think about long-term perspective and an organization in terms of integrity, but also one thing you touched upon, and I think that you're going to be excited about this one, the well-being and the moral of employees, because the positive moral and how people feel actually, because a lot of these things you're already hinting at the consequences of if you don't really prioritize the well-being, if you don't prioritize actually being good, communicate clearly. But I feel like organizations, we always look at the balance sheet and we look at the EBITDA and we look all these different fancy things, but then there are so many traits behind it. And one of the things is that people are happy when they come to work, right? And they can, in a long-term perspective, think like, oh, I actually can associate myself to be here for a period of time. Yes, it's not my organization, I will maybe treat it as one, as my own company, but I am actually engaging day to day. So what are your thoughts on these two?
There are a lot of outdated sort of processes in this front as well, especially looking at the larger organizations, because if you look at their sort of annual or quarterly employee engagement surveys, okay, I'm sure that it's a joke, right? It's not working. They're doing it just to cover their backs. And I've seen some really bad examples with the employee engagement surveys as well, that they are not actually anonymous properly, because they have to give you like all these detailed characteristics like your nationality, your sexual orientation, your skin color, your religion, etc. So if you're in a small team, easily they can figure out who you are, right? So it's not really anonymous anymore. So people are obviously not going to give you the right, relevant and honest answers of how they really feel about working for you or working with you. So instead of doing those traditional surveys, I think they need a major uplift and a major revamp, because it's not giving you anything. It's not helping you anything. All it does maybe is you can again fabricate the numbers and you give that to the traditional marketing department, and you can look at your best performing statistic and put that on Glassdoor to say 9 out of 10 people don't hate working here or something, and you word it in a way that is going to make you look good. But that is so wrong on so many levels, and this is when integrity comes into play. Okay, don't fabricate those statistics. Don't try to ignore the real situation of what your employees are going through, of how happy they are, how engaged they are. As leaders, you can be so innovative. You can come up with creative ideas like, how else could I measure my team's engagement? How else could I measure my team's real motivation levels? And what can I do as a leader to improve that? If you don't know where is the A, like where you're coming from, how are you going to take them to B? It's impossible for you. So you need to figure out some way of measuring. And going back to that client of mine that I mentioned, it's such an amazing question that he has for his prospects, like, how do you measure happiness? It's so valid. It's such a major thing to implement, and it could be done through a team activity. You will see the ones who are not excited about going to your team activities, they have some issues. You're not treating them well enough. Or someone who's literally clocking out at 5 o'clock and they don't care what's happening. I'm not saying to stick around longer, but if you see that the person is clock watching, that says a lot about how happy they are. Okay, if they just look forward to the weekend because they really hate being there. So those are those little hidden clues that you could look at as an employee, and you could have those genuine conversations with them. You could bring in an external person, and I think that's probably one of the easiest ways to measure something like that, to bring in someone who isn't associated with your company, because they are going to be a lot open to being honest with them. And a major mistake, again, what I see happening is when these employee engagement surveys come out and they realize, like, oh no, our management team is burnt out, they're not motivated, we need to, like, let's fix it. Okay, we're gonna bring in some coaches. Great, sounds okay in theory, but what they do is it's the company who contracts the coach. So the coach is being paid by the company, and the coach has to achieve a specific outcome with that manager. Do you think they're really going to give their full attention to what the manager wants? No, the coach is going to focus on what the company wants. Okay, so the coaching itself is not going to be that efficient if it is fully contracted by the company. But the good example for this situation, or how to solve it better, give your teams like a personal development allowance and let them find their own coaches, their own mentors, their own therapists, their own yoga studios, or whatever they need, instead of you forcing your solution onto them and you forcing them to take part in these personal development activities that are only forcing them to fit into the picture that you're trying to create for your organization, instead of really caring about how the employee feels and how they develop. So I see great examples nowadays. I think the market really is changing, and tech companies exactly are the major leaders within this space. The remote first tech companies are offering amazing employee benefits for these things in mind, wellness benefits, allowances for going to the library and stuff like that. Like, who goes to the library? I want to go to the library, right? I don't even know where is a library near here. But little things that get you out of your day-to-day routine. And maybe it sounds a little weird, like, why should you do that? Or there's a company called chess.org or .com, not quite sure now. They are doing a lot of educational programs for people to get them excited about chess and strategic thinking, and they are doing it for kids. It's a really cool program what they do, and as part of their benefit package as well, that you can play chess for free for the rest of your life. Like, they give them all these free access to their own platform. It costs them nothing to do that, but as an employee you feel like you're part of a team. So you can do these little things, and it's not mandatory. It's not something that you have to do, but look at ways, what is it that your team or your organization really needs. If you really don't have any other way to measure the level of wellness or well-being or engagement, but sticking to the engagement surveys, then take a look at your lowest scores and focus on that, and then maybe ask your teams, what is it that you want? How can we fix it? Instead of the committee getting together and having 15 hours of brainstorming sessions and bringing in all these external project managers to come up with a solution without asking the people who are actually impacted. It's a waste of money, waste of time. If you really notice that you have the recurring pain points within the organization, maybe you notice that there's a specific department that is underperforming for months, for every quarter, there's a reason behind it. Look at the biggest, lowest numbers. If you're really driven by data and numbers don't lie. They will tell you where the issue is and which team is the unhappiest. And instead of punishing them and downsizing them and closing down their department, that's what you could do. If you have the time, if you have the budget, if you have the resources and the drive, most importantly, and the integrity to do that, okay? You could look at, maybe you notice that, hey, it's the accountant team is constantly delayed with their reports. We have a lot of outstanding invoices. Let's have a chat and sit down with the guys. Or let's bring in an external consultant to understand, why is the delay? Why are they not performing? Are they understaffed? Are they not happy? Is it the software they are using? So do a bit of root cause analysis. That's what I would start, because if you don't know what is the real reason why your team is not happy, or a department specifically is not happy, you can come up with so many team building opportunities. No one's going to give a shit, excuse my language, about free pizzas on Fridays. That's not going to change the organization, right?
Yep. I mean, thanks for a colorful picture and a lot of nice examples. It really, we talked a lot today about big organizations, and I feel there is help needed. And like from, like you said, if you hire some coach or a facilitator and he's just paid to do what the organizational is bidding, then obviously it's not going to be as effective. And like I throughout how you were describing different situation, I had a lot of examples. I'm like, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Where you get like internally different initiatives. I'm like, no, I mean, this doesn't help anybody. But it is also one big thing, and this is why I think that's the downfall of big organizations is the safety. A lot of people get into big organization because they try to hide. They try to, they know that they don't have to do much effort, and I mean, I see myself in, when I was working for smaller organizations, you're way more visible than if you're in a bigger organizations. Then
Yeah.
you see fingers pointed from one apartment to another. No, they are actually faulty, and this is why we're not selling. This is why the marketing doesn't work. We got to outsource that. You're like, no, that's not exactly it. But I mean, you don't say sometimes anything because you know that nothing will change. But
that's the problem. And you see, you said the key sentence. A lot of people think that way within organizations. And I've been there myself. And I've felt that way so many times. You speak up, you speak up, you speak up as an employee. And then you realize, like, you get tired of it. Like, you know what? Like, nothing changes. Why bother? That's the worst sort of state that you can create within an organization when your team becomes in that kind of mindset to say, I don't know what, I'd rather not say anything because nothing will change. And that's why the positive thing about the bank, though, that I worked with, finally, I really love that they have a very big emphasis on the lean approach, and they had the full-on sort of roles for people for training them for Six Sigma and also for continuous improvement. And I was also volunteering as an extra role. I was a continuous improvement rep for my department, and it was a great thing to do. And you could tell which one of those departments reps were engaged. And so I was responsible for the entire debt collection department. So that meant, I don't know, 500-600 people. So I was basically filtering through their ideas, if they had any ideas how to improve our processes, our workload, our working environment, things like that. And then I had to present them to the management to say, okay, these are the great ones that will really save us time. And then I had to project manage them to make sure that they were going through. But I love that approach because people could raise their ideas really anonymously. That was just like the full-on, not digital, the full-on analog way of doing it. Piece of paper, put it in a box, okay? Suggestion box, we've all seen that. But they work for a reason because it feels that no one's going to be able to track my login ID. It's just a piece of paper, okay? They're not going to fingerprint it probably. So people are going to be a lot more outspoken that way when it's just a piece of paper and throw it in there. And if it's just a sort of a whinging box and you just want to have like a bit of a complain about something, do that as well. Get it out of the way, because the best process improvement ideas come from complaining. When you hear people and you go to the floor and you hear people complain about it's very simple example. One of the biggest ideas that we pushed through within that department was so simple and they saved so much money. The people were complaining on the second floor that every time they had to print, the big printer, the colored printer, was on the third floor. So they were like walking up and down and up and down. And they were printing like hundreds of letters each day. Okay. So it was a super, super, super simple fix. Move the printer from the third floor because it was placed in a department that was barely printing anything. Maybe they printed something once a week, but the team below were printing daily hundreds of letters. But those poor guys had to walk up a flight of stairs and come back, which meant, and we had to calculate like how many seconds a day they wasted on walking up and down and dealing with the paper jam and all that stuff, fixing the printer. And I can't remember now the exact number, but because it was a big department, the bank ended up saving a lot of money by moving the printer one floor below. And it all came down from that complaining of the team by the coffee machine. They're like, oh, I can't believe I have to walk up again on a flight of stairs. And after a while, it hits your ear. So as a leader, and if you're up for organizational improvement and you want to really improve your processes, listen to those trivial complaints, the ones that a lot of leaders or managers would be like, stop complaining, move on. No, complaining can be really good. It shows you what needs improvement. It gives you the opportunities to make some changes. Another example here quickly before we wrap things up soon, but when it's a call center setup, okay, and if you are leaving a message, you are on the outbound side of things, you're calling people, okay, and then it's the voicemail, like you still remember, like they still have them, right? So people don't pick up and hi, you reached the whatever voicemail. It takes about, I don't know, 10-15 seconds before you can leave a message, and that's again wasted time from the company's perspective. So we decided that actually we can create a simple code for the system that you can bypass the message by pressing a button. So we saved 15 seconds per call. For a call center, that's a lot of time. You can be making a lot more money by hitting the right client instead of wasting a total of, I don't know, 2-3 hours a month listening to that 15-second voicemail. So listen to the complaints. That will give you great clues how your team is really behaving, what's bothering them really, and the little changes that you make by listening to their complaints will make them feel actually really wanted, and they will feel like that I'm being seen. They feel like I'm being heard. Maybe you are not in a position to implement the big changes. Maybe you don't have the budget, you don't have the potential, but little changes you can implement. And they will feel like, okay, they're actually listening to us. If they hate the coffee, give them a different brand. Simple things like that that can really go a long way.
I like it. Again, a lot of elaborative examples, and I like how you make it practical, because that's like the printer and complaining. So thanks for that. Just to wrap things up, I have one more question,
Go for it.
and that's about resilience and adaptability. I believe that resilience and adaptability are also two kind of values that are part of integrity, especially if you think about what we go through now in organizations. And you described a lot of examples. Thanks for the bank. I will remember it till the end of my life now. That's very good. But what would be the number one or two, three pieces of advice to people who actually are in a tough spot right now? There are layoffs, there are all these things we talked about, they are going horribly wrong, but they don't want to quit because they know that they have to pay the bills, they have to do this, and their only logical answer might be resilience. Hey, how do I stick it out? How do I adjust to the pressure? Do you have, from your experience, before they decide to take
You're not going to like my answer.
and right, I quit and hand it in, but are there some top 3 tips that you would give people to hang on?
Yeah, it's a very important question. That's what I said jokingly. You're not going to like my answer, because I would say, yes, they have to quit if they feel that way, but there isn't going to be an immediate quitting, right? Because of the reasons what you are saying. So if they are very clear and they have that clarity to understand that this is not the right environment for me, I'm not going to make any progress, nothing is getting implemented, no one is listening to me, there's no integrity here. So if you got to that point and you realize I eventually will need to leave, but right now I'm not in a position to do it, then I would say there are a few things that you can do to take that pressure off of you. So first of all, try to discuss the most burning problems with your manager. So whoever that you are reporting to, bring the top priorities to the table and tell them what are the sort of top 2 or top 3 things that are stressing you out the most, and give them the reason why they are stressing you out and present a solution that you believe could be a potential fix. Okay, so maybe in an example, I don't know, your team is not performing because they're not getting the right tools to hit their targets. Okay, so maybe they don't have the right software, they don't have the budget or whatever, but you are the one who is getting blamed for your team underperformance. But you know really well, like, there's nothing else you can do because you're giving them everything that you have, but they don't have the software, the tools, the budget. In that case, bring that to the attention of your online manager and show them the two possibilities. If it's possible, show them with numbers, so at least you can also wash your hands to say I told you so, but in a nice way. Okay, so you can say that, guys, I'm really trying to do this for the organization, It's not just my hobby to annoy you and saying that things are not working. Paint the picture, get a couple of quotations for other software companies and show them like, okay, this is the expense that we're going to incur, but within 6 months, within 2 months, within 1 year, we would have generated an extra X percentage profit because we are being more efficient. If you are showing the outcome of a potential change or something, some kind of an improvement, or especially when it's a change that comes with a cost, that's usually the ones that you get say no to a lot of the times. Show them the outfits. If the problem why you're not liking what you're doing right now is not the job itself, but maybe it's the environment, then remove yourself as soon as you possibly can. Try to look at maybe any side moves within the company. So if you can't just get up and leave and give your notice, then you could look at maybe any shadowing for someone, maybe for 6 months, at least get yourself out for 6 months. Maybe there's someone who's going on maternity leave or paternity leave. Look at the potentials, like, can I step in for that role and do that job for 6 months so I don't have to deal with this manager for at least the next 6 or 12 months? Okay, there are, especially for big organizations, there are always these secondment opportunities when you can step into another role for a temporary time frame, and that way you can also see, is the problem really within the whole company? Do I really hate it here because of the organization? Or is it just my manager? Is it just my team? Is it just this division? And I did that as well. I actually took a sidestep eventually and I went to work in a different team. And you can see the differences between one building within the same floor. It's just by managing to or reporting to a different manager, it will be a different environment. So you can do these things. Try to look at, how can I remove myself from the environment? If it is that personal clashes that you are having, if it is a specific person that annoys you or giving you a hard time, try to minimize your contact with them as much as you possibly can and step away from that environment as quickly as you can. If it means you can't leave that job, then leave the department, leave that person, and volunteer for another opportunity just to get you out of that office for a little bit. Okay, there are ways of doing it. Speak to someone else and see, like, are they having the same issue? Someone at your level. That's a good way as well. Find your internal mentor within the company, okay? Someone that you can buddy up with and have an open conversation with someone at your level to understand, is it just me? Like, is the problem with me? Am I causing this situation for myself, or someone else is dealing with something similar? Because if it's the two of you, you might be able to share some useful information that can turn things around and make it better. Maybe the three of you can now then sit down and work things out to make it a bit better. So that's what I think resilience have to come into play. Do look after yourself first, and this is where you need to apply resilience. If something isn't working, if something isn't right, but you cannot just get up and leave, then this is where you need to bring that resilience into game. That, what else can I do to make things better? Look for opportunities. Bring that high energy, that go-getter energy into this to find a way out. And if you can bring that resilience into that, if it means leaving the company, bring the resilience into applying for new jobs, speaking to headhunters, putting the word out there that you are open for opportunities, or starting your own business, or whatever that is, okay? So I would say, at the end of the day, even if it is going to be a little controversial what I'm about to say, nothing is going to be as important as your own sanity. And know that the topic is about organization leadership and you should be looking at the organization, but there is no organization if one element, one organ within that organization is not functioning well. And it's like the rotten apple scenario, right? You have one bad apple, the rest will follow. So the organization will also be rotten if you're not removing the bad apples. Same thing here. So look after yourself first, and instead of overdoing it and grinding your teeth and just pulling through those bad days, there are always other ways that you can change that situation around you if you cannot get up and go. I would always say get up and go, or for big organizations, you can go down the slightly uncomfortable route of filing formal complaints, bringing it up with HR, things like that. If your manager is really not responding to any of your requests, any of your grievances, your concerns, there are ways to do it through HR. the question is, do you really want to do that? Is it worth your time, your effort, the uncomfortable phase that you're gonna experience? And it's gonna be ugly. Like, if you have to get HR involved, it's never gonna be a great experience, because once you are back in your role, your manager will know, you will know, your team will know. So ask yourself, do you really want to go down that route or not? The best option, if you really can't change things, if no one is responding, if it is the environment itself and it's not just a software, it's not just, I don't know, a temporary glitch, then you're sitting in the wrong organization.
Word. That's
Yes.
a beautiful conclusion. I would add to it as well, or maybe stress out already what you said. You got to care about yourself, and it's very easy to run out and easy to say I quit. Like, your beautiful example when you were 20, you said, okay, I'm out of here, ego screaming. I think older we get, we realize, hey, maybe there is something life should teach me here. So listen to that helped me a lot in my life as well. Seeing when how people react, and it's not maybe even about the hard skills, because that is a never ending improvement, always can get better. But is life teaching you something? Is the universe telling you, hey, maybe you should be kinder here, or you should
Yeah.
listen here? You always run away instead of backing and going through the process, like you said, doing side steps. So I would encourage you as well to question and reflect. Sometimes, like you said, it might mean just stepping back, reflecting, journaling, and saying, hey, where am I at? Is it me? Because a lot of times I am a big advocate of looking out, what I'm putting out often comes back. And if I'm putting out, negative complaining thoughts all the time, I shouldn't wonder that it comes back at me. So,
Yes.
but you're absolutely right. There's a lot of organizations which I feel are not the right environment. And it,
Sadly, because a lot of companies could be, and then I much prefer to have the smaller startup setup, but I see a lot of benefits of and I worked in the big organizations as well, and those big organizations have major advantages over the startups, and it's a shame to see how they are they're not appreciating the team, the organization, as much as the startups do usually. And it just breaks my heart to see that they have the tools, they have the money, they have the time, they have the talent to do incredible things, and things just sort of somehow fall apart. Not all of them. There are some amazing companies out there, so don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to generalize here, but start there. What you're saying as well, that, and I really like that perspective. What you mentioned, that ask yourself, is it me? Okay, because it could be you. It could be that you're not suited for organizations like that.
yeah,
Okay.
especially if you're in a hurt box, a lot of times when we are, in a difficult situation, when we get a direct feedback and we don't like it, and our general reaction is to protect ourselves and say, how dare you give me, such feedback? Then obviously we have a problem, and we
Yeah.
need to learn to fail fast, or just maybe shut up first and speak a little bit later. But I agree. I mean, it's tough out there. Let's be honest about it. And some smaller organizations sometimes are cozier. But again, I guess this is a discussion for another day. But I really like the examples, because you shared countless examples today how it can go wrong, but also how it can go right. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. It's always lovely to pick your brain, because I know you have a lot to do on your plate. So to conclude this, are there any parting thoughts you want to share with the audience, or anything that you would send them off to be well on their journey in the next coming years?
Oh, big pressure on me for the next coming years. Let's just like do it for the next few months.
Let's
hopefully
start
they
with that.
hopefully they will be a different characters in the next few years. That's what I would like to wish them to be, a lot different in a few years time than who they are today. So hopefully they evolve as much in a couple of years time. But my parting sort of thought or wisdom probably would be to really remember that key sentence, that an organization is a living and breathing thing. Okay, so there is a reason why the word organization has multiple meanings. So if you try to look at organizational management, or leadership from that perspective, and you look at the entire organization as a living and breathing things with different organs, different parts, different functions, you can bring your integrity into the game a lot easier, I think, because then you treat it as an animal or a being or a plant or whatever. And usually us humans are a lot more kinder to those things that we consider as living creatures. Your business, that company is the same. It is a living and breathing creature. Look at it from that perspective, and that's how you can identify, where do I need to bring more integrity? Where do I need to improve as a leader, as a manager, to make it a much more vital and vivid and lively organization? So go live.
Go live organization. No, really cool. Thank you again for your time and your thoughts and wisdom. I think there is a lot to cover, especially in these, but even in this humble hour, I think we covered a lot of ground. Thank you for that. Connect with Timi. It's always fun to chat with her. Probably best. I mean, connect one marketing.
One marketing, very good.
Or LinkedIn. So, but I will drop the link for Timi as well for you guys. Timi, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you for
your
having me.
positivity. Keep striving, keep impacting people with your well-roundedness. And I'm very excited, like we started, with your future project. I know you didn't share what it's gonna be, but I'm excited to see that when that's gonna unroll. So
I'll give you an update. We'll do another episode when that happens.
Exactly. So high five. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for
Be
being.
well. And until the next time, take care. Bye bye.